he writes out of the blue to me, and he says this. He says, I have a very simple question. If the Aleph Tav is simply a direct object pointer, why isn't it in every verse throughout the Old Testament that has a transitive verb with direct objects? I emailed the rabbis in Israel that have the website Ask the Rabbi and asked them what they thought of the Aleph Tav, and they gave me quotes from the writings of the most famous Jewish rabbis down through the history, like Akiva and R.S. Herzach, who believed... Hirsch. Oh, I'm sorry. I put an A in there. Sorry. Hirsch, correct. Who believed and taught the Aleph Tav was a mark of the hand of the Almighty with profound spiritual significance. There are over 200 chapters in the Old Testament with no Aleph Tavs and hundreds of more chapters with only one or two Aleph Tavs, and few people know this. All this evidence supports the Aleph Tav as being something extraordinary in biblical texts. Now, before... I don't know what Rob is going to say, but he is much more qualified to deal with anything Hebrew than I am. There's no doubt about that. I would just like to give my quick observations of this, and then I will throw it to you to be able to respond. First of all, I'm not sure why Mr. Sanford thinks that Jewish mystics, are going to have... why would you take their word for something like on this? The mystics will find secret meaning behind every rock and every letter in the entire Bible. They find mystical meanings in the spaces in between. I'm not joking. This is true. In the spaces between the letters in the Torah. They believe in Metatron. They believe in all sorts of nonsense. It's essentially it's a non-biblical religion. Essentially, when you talk about the mystics of Judaism. So I'm not sure why you think that Ask the Rabbi website or quotes from Jewish mystics gives your argument any more weight. If anything, it lessens your argument. You're not helping yourself here. That's number one. And number two, personally, and no offense to anyone who is all in on the Aleph Tav, I see this a lot like flat earth. You know, what benefit is it to me if there's some secret meaning in the Aleph Tav? Okay, so let's pretend for a few seconds that the Aleph Tav has secret covenantal meaning hidden in it for, that no one's discovered until the 20th century. If that's the case, how does that bring me closer to God? How does my relationship with God get better if I believe in the Aleph Tav and find the secret hidden meaning, but Rob doesn't? Am I more spiritual? Do I have a better understanding of the Bible? What does it do for the verses where all of a sudden I see the secret meaning? Nothing. It doesn't do anything. The meaning of the text is still there for me to understand. I'm still just as close with God. The same with the flat earth. Like, what benefit does it have? This is, to me, this is, we talked the past several weeks about asking good questions. To me, this is not a good question. Not Mr. Sanford's. I'm sorry. I don't want to put Mr. Sanford down here. Not his question. His question is a decent question, and Rob will, I'm sure, answer it. But for me, the question of, is there hidden meaning in the Aleph Tav is not a, that's not a very... it's not a very good question, because what benefit is it? What benefit does it have for us? The answer is none. Okay, I'm done.
Well, yeah, this is it was a surprising email. Caleb received it and shared it with me. And there's so much to say about this. I'm going to try to boil down, some of the basics, but I've actually mentioned to Caleb doing a seminar maybe this summer, just like a thing people can log in and go through and show slides. If there's interest, if there's needs. I don't know how many people are dealing with this strange doctrine, but and we've shared this before. Chuck Missler was teaching this back when I first listened to him in the early 90s, I think it was. And his big thing was that it's not translatable, right? It's untranslatable. That was, and that is like this hook. Oh, there's something in Hebrew that's not translatable. And you can prove that it's not translatable by looking at an interlinear. They never put a word underneath it.
Can I interject just real quick?
Sure.
With untranslatable. So we have a small group, and there's just a wonderful couple in our small group. He listens, so I'm sure he'll hear this. But they're Ukrainian and they speak Russian, right? And so we're sitting around the table, and I said, "How do you say fun in Russian?" And she looks at me and she says, "We don't have a word for fun in Russian." And I mean, the whole table just lost it. We just uncontrollably laughed. But I mean, the idea that something is not, there's no direct translation in another, it's untranslatable in another language, happens a lot in many different languages.
But that doesn't apply to the et, I guess. Yeah. It's a myth that it's not translatable. And the fact is it does translate. And there's a bunch of ways that we can demonstrate that. And one of the ways is we can understand too that it's bigger than just the Bible. So we have ancient inscriptions from the land of Israel. We have inscriptions that are in the Phoenician language, Moabite, like the Moabite. Just look up the Moabite stone. There's a handful of ets functioning as a direct object marker on the Moabite stone. And I think that's what, 8th century BC. And so we have it in Aramaic inscriptions. We have it in Hebrew inscriptions from the First Temple period, from Judea, where we have the ostraca with various letters, like the letters from Arad and the letters from Lachish, where we just have, they use potsherds and they wrote in ink in Hebrew. And they use et as it's part of the living language. So you have to remember that language it's a spoken language. Right. And the writing is just to capture what is spoken. And so it's not like the Bible is, and what's dangerous, I think, about this view, it's like bibliomancy or almost divination, where you're going to open the written text and you're going to kind of like Ouija board to like specific letters, and then those letters are going to somehow have some sort of super cosmic meaning. That's not the way Yeshua, right? There's no one in the scriptures teach us to read the Bible that way.
Don't miss any clips from Messiah Matters by clicking the subscribe button. Also, give this video a thumbs up and share it so other people can see it too.